Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. And I want to start today with a correction for two viewers. Two viewers specifically, and you'll be the only two that get it. But, right is right, wrong is wrong. Doesn't matter. Gotta live up to it regardless of the scale. Yeah, I don't see it either now that I'm looking. I added in the mustache, because, if you squint, Anyway, if you're out there, Chris, my apologies. So today on the show, we have got gerrymandering. Yes, it's a problem in much of America, and it's making the work of the left harder. Why? Because it's a dishonest practice, and that's what we generally fight against. Then also, the minimum wage has not budged in 15 years, and yet inflation, it doesn't stop for anybody. Bernie Sanders was on Ali Velshi's show, and he knocked it out of the park, as we've come to expect from Bernie. And then how to multiply your political power. Yes, you can do more than vote once every 4 years. America's designed for you to have a lot of political power, but we're trained not to use it. Time to unlearn that training. Let's jump right into it. I'm excited. First of all, let's have a look at what gerrymandering actually is. This is a very helpful chart from the Washington Post. So here you have a hypothetical district or a hypothetical set of districts that consists of 50 people for simplicity's sake. Figure 1, that's second from the left there, that is perfect representation. So the districts are divided up in such a way that the actual people in there are represented fairly. And in that, you have a blue win. So there's more blue voters than red in this hypothetical place. Then in the second from the right, you've got it gerrymandered in favor of blue. So again, it's a blue win, but that's an unfair map. And it's going to be difficult for red to win ever. And then finally, you have something that looks more like our current system in a lot of states. And that is a map gerrymandered in favor of red. And in this division, even though the votes are the same in every one of these, this is divided up in such a way where red wins. Dishonest practice, but that is what we're dealing with in a lot of states around the country. We've got exactly what you can do about it coming up in a moment. But first, let's go to our old reliable Ari Melber with a piece on gerrymandering. Let's have a look.
Really interesting information in politics. This new Congress has gotten attention as the Republicans took charge. But November's elections are reshaping power in states around the nation, with Democrats actually riding a wave to take control of many state houses that the GOP had ruled for many years. It's actually a wider indicator as Dems govern more Americans right now, since these new state governments were sworn in this month, at the state level than Republicans. So take Michigan, where Democrats won the Senate and House for the first time since 1984.
It was an historic election night and some historic results.
Now, wait a minute. I don't want to nitpick too much here, but if you're going to do Michigan, and it looks like you're going to do a station from mid-Michigan, I want to see some David Andrews up there, some Ann Emmerich. What is this? Come on, MSNBC. You're owned by Comcast. That's the same people that own NBC. And that's an affiliate of...
Here's where things stand tonight. Democrats swept the top of the ticket.
Whitmer,
Michigan's future
Benson,
is bright, and
Nessel.
we're about to step on the accelerator.
Boom.
For the first time in 40 years, Democrats have control of both chambers.
That's a Fox station.
More than 100 years after the first woman was elected to
Killing
serve
me.
in the state Senate, that same chamber has selected its first woman majority leader.
And in Michigan, we have lots of seats at the table, so it's very gratifying to be part of that.
You can see all that big news there, local news coverage, and there's a lot more to this story. which could actually shape future campaigns and shows the state of our democracy. It's why we invited Michael Moore on tonight, because while the power did flip here in 2022, Democrats had already won a majority in that state of Michigan several times.
Watching this, by the way, while living in that state, was infuriating. Break it down, Ari.
But they, and really the voters' will, was blocked. Now, this is a striking story. It has many people wondering if a state like Michigan has a democracy at all. Let me show you exactly what I mean, and we're going to get into why this matters. But if you actually look at this, it's kind of wild. It's like an article you'd forward or that would go viral. So let's start. In 2012, a majority votes for Democrats for the Michigan House. But Republicans held control. Okay, let's look at 2014. Most voters go blue. Majority for Democrats, but the same thing happens. Republicans hold government there. Now, in 2016, you may recall the Trump wave. Voters in Michigan go for Republicans, and they hold the House. Now, in 2018, blue again, but the state House stays red. Same in 2020. There you have most voters go blue, but the state House
harsh
in 2020 stayed Republican. Now, let me tell you about this. That is...
Oh, no, the graphics.
We're going to get back to 22, but several elections in a row. What you see there, Republicans win, Republicans hold the House. Democrats win, Republicans hold the House almost every time. Now, that is just repeating over and over a thing where people go and vote, and then you have an undemocratic outcome. The majority will thwart it. Now, we'll show this up for you again, because, again, we've done some work to pull all these numbers. The 2022 you see at the bottom is the only time where you have a blue check, and then you actually have a blue state House. That's a lot of times. That's a big state. That's the reality for millions of people. This is wild, even if this is new to you.
Again, the faces that I'm feeling.
Even if you don't live in...
There we go. We're going to be nice. So why did that happen? Why did that change? You know what? I can't remember if he talks about it in this clip. We're certainly going to get to it, though, in a moment. But let's give him a chance, because Ari Melber usually knocks this out of the park.
Michigan, I'm going to tell you why it's relevant, but this may not always be national news, but it's the context for so many election headlines that you see here, where Democrats win more votes in America, and then Republicans hold power and hold government.
November 9th, many Democrats and Democratic supporters woke up to the reality of an election cycle that went in...
What are they doing with wood? It's a local thing.
In a way decidedly different from what they had hoped.
Republicans go back into the legislature with an even bigger margin in the state House.
It's time to accelerate and go even faster and get more done to reinvent our state.
Protesters gathered outside Michigan State Capitol on Wednesday
largely
to
responsible
speak
for
out
the Flint
against
water
what
crisis,
some say
unless
is a
you ask the
last-minute
courts.
power grab by Republican lawmakers. Republican lawmakers also took the final steps to try to restrict minimum wage and sick leave laws.
There's that old chant, this is what democracy looks like. But if you're in Michigan there year after year, you're thinking, if this is what democracy looks like, what's the point of voting? Which, of course, is not my main takeaway here, but you could understand people feeling that way.
Yeah, that is exactly what it felt like. There's 2 minutes left in this clip. I have the link in the description, certainly. But what happened in 2018? Well, a referendum was passed that helped Michigan to kill gerrymandering, to end it in the state. It was a massive victory. That let us go from looking like that far right figure there to something a little closer to that figure second from the left. So what can you do? Therein lies the question. Well, you cannot let gerrymandering stand in your state. First, how do you find out if your state is gerrymandered? Well, links in the description. There are resources for this. There's websites that track this. They are linked below. And you can pull up your state in particular and have a look at something like this. What you are looking for is for who draws the districts. Now there's Alabama. Who draws the districts there? The state legislature. It's not good. That is not what we want. There's a ton of other information available on those sheets. It's like one sheet that's a PDF that you can view for your state. But if your state draws the districts by the people who get elected, state legislature, probably not going to be a very democratic system that you have. What is something you would want to have instead? What would you want to see? Something like this, an independent redistricting commission, something made up of people who aren't getting elected. In Colorado, they've got it where it's a random draw of people who have voted, and it's I think it's 12 members, 4 registered with each of the 2 major parties, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Redistricting commissions, they're abbreviated to IRCs. That's the way to go. So, do your work. Check your state. Make sure that your state has an independent redistricting commission. If it does not, here's how you change that. On the state level, because we're going to talk about federal level in a moment, but on the state level, what you can do is attend public meetings. There's a guide to that in the description, but you attend public meetings and say that you want an independent redistricting commission. I've even put a script in there. You simply talk, that might be for the federal. Regardless, you say it is not democratic that the people who get elected decide how they get elected. I want an independent redistricting commission for this state. When you're talking publicly, I mean, this would be at state meetings, essentially. But you can also email your representative and tell them that exactly. I have a new link for contacting representatives because it says everybody in the list that would be relevant to you, from president to your district representative. I highly recommend using that. It is a great way to multiply your political power, which we're going to get to in a full section in a moment. At the federal level, there is also work that can be done. We want to make this easier for all, so it doesn't have to be a battle state by state by state. We just want to get that golden snitch and get the instant win. Federal level is the way to go. Contact your senator. Tell them that you want you want federal redistricting laws put in place, regulations on redistricting put in place at a federal level. Got the script in the description. I recommend taking advantage. Mickey says, NYS tried to gerrymander against the Republicans. We stopped that. Good on you. Good on you. Yeah, I'm assuming that's referring to unfair gerrymandering to the detriment of Republicans, and good. I don't want to win dishonestly. So I'm glad to hear that you kept the state honest. Good on you, sir. Well, Ali Velshi, who's been rising up in my estimation of cable news talking heads. He had Bernie Sanders on recently, and they talked about one of the primary causes, if not the primary cause of injustice in America. It's a highly capitalistic system, which means money equals power. So if the people don't get a lot of money, then they don't get a lot of power. Here's Bernie.
It's been 13 years since the federal minimum wage in this country was increased. Since 2009, the minimum wage in America has been $7.25 an hour. The many calls to increase the federal minimum wage have gone unanswered, but some companies are stepping up and have been in the last few years. The latest one is Walmart. Starting in early March, Walmart is raising its minimum wage for store employees to $14 an hour, up from $12. That's a roughly 17% jump in wage.
I want to be clear about one thing. Walmart is not doing that out of generosity. It's because they're going through the same thing everybody's going through after the pandemic, which is people realize they have value. When we were told to go out and risk our lives to keep the country going, that let the cat out of the bag. We realized, oh, the country doesn't work if we don't work. The country doesn't function. There was that moment where the rich who spent the last, at least my whole life, near in 4 decades, telling us that no, your dollar value is your value. That's it. You don't deserve anything else. If you're poor, if you're hungry, if your car doesn't work, you deserve that, and you're only worth that. Then there was a pandemic. They said, never mind. You're essential. You're essential to America. So we can risk our lives. We came out of that. Pandemic never really ended. We just decided we weren't going to fight it anymore, apparently. But we came out the other side of that being aware that we are in fact essential. And if we're half-starved, skipping trips to the doctor, unable to pay for college, our own college, much less our hypothetical kids if we can ever afford to just have a child. Came out the other side of it with a new understanding of our value. So, Walmart did not have a choice. Be clear about that. Also be clear, any community with a Walmart in it is going to get a massive boost in its local economy. That is how this works. That is why when there's a serious financial crisis, giving checks to Americans is what solves it. Not corporations in America, but Americans. Not billionaires, but human beings. That's what solves it. I'm going to let this continue.
The company's decision will push average hourly wages to over $17.50. That means 340,000 store employees will get a raise, representing 21% of Walmart's 1.6 million employees in the United States. Remember that Walmart is the largest private employer in the country. In his note published on the company's website, the CEO, John Furner, said he's focused on investing in employees through higher wages and new opportunities to help grow their careers. Now, this news comes as the U.S. job market remains extremely tight with an
Sorry, that corporate talk kills me. Oh, my God. Investing in employees to further their yada, 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 yada. You had to. You got your arm twisted and you had to, in other words.
Employment rate of 3.5% in December. Joining me now is the Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, the new chairman of the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. He's a major proponent, always has been, of raising the federal minimum wage. He's also the author of a new book, It's Okay to Be Angry About Capitalism, which comes out next week. Senator, good to see you again. Thank you for being.
I desperately hope that is in audiobook book form. I wear these puppies all the time. I would love to. I would love the audiobook read by Bernie. Can you imagine how it would sound for like 8 hours, me yelling in your ears? For some reason, that's got to have a ton of appeal to me.
With us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Look, you've been making the argument, as have many people, for a legislative fix for the federal minimum wage to actually be higher than it is. For better or for worse, the tight labor market has caused this to happen among some of the country's major employees. Are you okay with the market having addressed some of the things that you were hoping to address through legislation?
The reason that Walmart has raised the minimum wage is, you know what, you can't find labor in many parts of this country for 10 or 12 bucks an hour, the wages that they have been providing. So they have done in their own self-interest that, hey, we need workers. Let's raise it to at least $14 an hour. But that is not enough. A couple of years ago, we fought to raise the minimum wage to $15 as a result of inflation in real dollars. That should be at least $17 right now. Here's the bottom line. You got over 60% of the people in this country living paycheck to paycheck. Tens of millions are working at starvation wages. It is not too much to ask that in the wealthiest country on earth, where we have massive income and wealth inequality, people on top doing phenomenally well, to say that in America, if you're working 40 hours a week, you're not living in poverty. $14 an hour is not going to do it. We got to raise the minimum wage to a higher level than that, and I'll do my best to make sure that happens. Other point that I want to make, and everybody should know this.
Before he keeps going, to give a little context to what he was talking about just then. Since 2010, the last time the minimum wage got raised, inflation has made the value of a dollar, the real value of the dollar, go down by 36%. So something worth a dollar in 2010 would now cost $1.36. Something that cost $100 would now cost $136. You get it. Okay. Think about that in comparison to the pay. It wasn't a living wage already in 2010. Now it's a living wage minus less than a living wage minus 36%. It's ridiculous. Somebody who's working full-time 40 hours a week at the federal minimum wage would make about $15,000 a year. Can you fathom trying to survive on $15,000 a year? It's America is not the country we think of ourselves as. We're like a guy remembering when we were in our freshman year of college and we had a six-pack and we don't see the gut looming over our belt because we refuse to look in the mirror. It's time, because we got heart problems.
In terms of Walmart, Walmart is owned by the Walton family, the wealthiest family in America. And you know, a lot of their workers who are earning wages so low, they got to go on food stamps, they got to go on Medicaid. So in other words, you have the taxpayers of this country subsidizing the wealthiest family in America because they're not paying a living wage.
Get them, Bernie.
Let me ask you about,
yes.
I want to actually just put wages on the screen for a second. The current minimum wage of $7.25 an hour, if you work full time, would net you $15,080 a year.
Oh, he nailed it. There you go.
Your proposal, your basic minimum proposal here of $15 an hour, still gets you $31,200 a year. So for people who are offended by the idea of doubling the minimum wage, people are not running away with a whole lot of money at that point. You're still only earning $30,000 a year if you earn $15 an hour.
And Ali, the price of housing has soared in recent years.
So yeah, a couple of things. Thing number one, what I did not mention in that $1.36 fact is that housing has not gone up proportional to that. Housing's gone up way faster than that. So if you couldn't afford an apartment on minimum wage in 2010, you definitely can't afford an apartment now. Not without a bunch of roommates stacking up, breaking the lease, yada, yada, yada. Also, good Lord, listening to Ali Velshi, a guy who's been well paid for a couple of decades now, cringe at 30,000. I'm just like, yeah, I mean, 30,000 isn't great, I guess, but you are talking to a YouTuber who's salivating over tens of dollars, so. And a former local newsman who, if you want to find a skilled news team, look at whatever bread line exists in your town, and you'll find your local news folks.
Average worker, my God, you know, you're paying $1,500 a month to put a roof over your head and your child's head. The price of food has gone up. You got healthcare expenses and so forth. So look, the bottom line is, this is not complicated. You got an economy right now that is doing great, fantastic for the 1%. How about creating an economy that works for ordinary Americans? That means you raise the minimum wage to a living wage. What that will be, I don't know. To my mind, at least $17 an hour. It's going to be a struggle, but that's the fight I want to wage.
Let me ask you about Social Security. There are concerns amongst members of the new majority in the House that the Social Security Trust Fund will not be fully funded by 2030.
I did not hear this part. Interesting. Let's see what he has to say.
They've caused people to think that that means that if you are retiring at that point, you won't get your full payout. That is inaccurate. However, there is an issue with funding, with replenishing the trust fund. You have a different solution for that than the Republicans have.
Yeah, wait a minute. There's no issue. We know exactly what to do. Raise the cap. Make somebody who's wealthy pay more than somebody who is not wealthy. It's pretty simple. I bet that's where we're going with Bernie. In fact, I think I heard that first from Bernie. So let's hear
These guys over in the House, some of them, not all, think that the solution is at a time when so many seniors, we don't talk about this enough. You got people who are trying to make it on Social Security, $15,000, $18,000 a year. You can't. So the solution is not what some Republicans want, to cut Social Security. The solution is to lift the cap on taxable income coming into the trust fund. Right now, we have an insane, really absurd situation. Person X makes $10 million a year. Person Y makes $160,000 a year. Both contribute exactly the same amount of money into the Social Security Trust Fund. If you lift that cap, as our legislation proposes, start at $250,000, you will have Social Security solvent for the next 75 years, solves the problem entirely, and raise benefits for lower income seniors. So that's the fight that we are waging. We're going to introduce that legislation this week.
Okay, well, I wish I had watched all of that. I generally try to only watch the first couple of minutes of these so I can be sure they're talking about the thing I want them to talk about. There's an argument for watching the whole thing because the idea being I can give a natural reaction. But man, I wish I would have put links to that legislation in the comments or in the description. So here's the deal. That legislation that he's talking about, this is probably worthy of a separate video. Anyway, back it up. I would say right into your representatives, your senator, your actual district representative, and tell them that you support it and you want them to support it. Because I cannot think of any American, anyone I have met, who isn't a politician specifically taking bribes from corporations that isn't in favor of keeping Social Security going. And it's a real easy way to do it. I am absolutely fine with any solution that starts with, well, we tax the rich. Yup, that's a great way to handle it. All right, full video is linked in the description. Definitely worth checking out. Bernie Sanders never disappoints. Every time I see him on a major news network, he's speaking the truth, and I'm delighted by it. So there's an impression in the country that your only way of creating change that you want to see is to vote every 2 years. In fact, a lot of folks think it's to vote every 4 years. Not so. Let's talk about multiplying your political power. So first of all, if you're voting once every 4 years, you're only involved in the presidential elections, you're leaving power on the table. Obviously, vote in the midterm elections. Vote every 2 years. But even that is leaving power on the table. Think of it like this. Instead of a binary, where it's we either won or we lost, think of it like you're trying to pull things in your direction. Here's where current representation is right now, and you want to drift it as far this way as you can. You don't just do one tug in this direction every 4 years. Start by doing it, all right, now every 2 years. So now you're getting your voice heard, like, for example, in the midterm elections. Then go a little bit more, vote in the primaries so that the candidates on the docket, the candidates that you have to choose from, are more likely, not guaranteed, but more likely to be someone who represents you. And even if your candidate doesn't win, the winning candidate will note it, will make a note of how well their competition did. And their policy is likely to reflect that, because they're going to want to pump up those people that are theoretically their voters in the general. A lot of times you hear people swing towards the center. They'll what do they say? They primary left and then general, or they primary left and then general towards the center. Well, if the most progressive candidate nearly wins but doesn't win, you can be assured that that centrist is going to try to appeal to those lefties to motivate them to show up. Then you can go even further with this. Once you have a candidate in office, and admittedly the existing disposition of the candidate will have an effect on how useful this is. But once they are in office, they still have to represent you. As their constituent, get on their butts. Contact them all the time. Be loud. Be a presence in their life, simply by calling and emailing and being persistent. That is multiplying your political power, because it is making things more like how you want them to be all the time. And you can do that constantly. You can do it every day if you want. I recommend personally once a week. Pick a cause, pick a person, email them, tell them what you want. Keep it to 2 sentences. I'm blank. This is what I want done. I'm your constituent. Here's how you can represent me. It is a great way to multiply your power. Let's have a quick look at the primary turnouts. This is an article from CNN. This is about the recent elections. Using my method, 53% of people voted in Republican primaries this year, compared with 47% who voted in Democratic primaries in 40 states. Ooh, stand by for just a moment while we deal with minor technical issues, assuming I am still on the stream. Yes, okay, so, all right. Anyway, let me just read this so that you get a sense of the decline that progressives had in the more recent elections. Using my method, 53% of people who voted in Republican primaries this year, compared with 47% who voted in Democratic primaries in the 40 states I studied. This is the author speaking, obviously. This is quite a change from 2018, where a similar 53% of voters cast ballots in Democratic primaries versus 47% who voted in Republican primaries. That was good enough for a 6-point advantage for Democrats. Okay, so what else happened in 2018? In 2018, we got the squad: Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib. 2018 was huge, not just for Democrats, but for progressives, because progressives were active in the primaries. We were sick of watching Democrats take L after L for no reason. What did we do about it? We got out in the primaries and we did our business. 2022, how'd it go? Not as well for progressives. Didn't go terribly, but that slump, as shown up there, was certainly noticed. Nearly 42 million people cast a ballot in either a Democratic or Republican primary this year in the 40 states the author looked at. That's more than 40 million who voted in these same states 4 years ago. It's greater than 33 million who voted in these states in 2010 and far greater than the 27 million who voted in 2014. A lot of this was because Republicans were more pumped to vote this year. GOP primary turnout was nearly 22 million, up 3 million from 2018. Don't leave political power on the table. Don't do it. Next time midterms roll around, hell, next time any election rolls around, be on social media telling your friends and family, it's time, get ready, go vote. The week before, just tell your people constantly, get ready to vote. Tuesday's coming. On the Democratic side, nearly 20 million voters turned out in primaries, down about 1.5 million from 2018. And what a difference that makes. I do wonder if we would have even lost the House if people had more progressive choices to motivate them to get out and vote. That's unfortunate, but the good news is there is, of course, always something you can do. Let's go over it again so that it's clear. It's easy to remember. What can you do? Get involved in primaries. We have an election coming up in 24. Just commit in your soul right now to being involved in the primaries. There is nothing wrong with making yourself heard. In fact, we need you to. Then there is contacting. You contact your politician. Everybody who represents you. Doesn't matter what party they're in. Contact them anyway. Be a force that pushes them towards what you want. And if you're really active, if you're the kind of person who feels like you need to do more, you can do more. Present. Go to public meetings in your town, for example, in front of your city council if you care about local issues. If you care about statewide issues, go to meetings of the legislature that the public may attend. There's often a section for public comment. You have to look it up on a state-by-state basis because states operate differently across the board. But go and present your case. There's an issue you care about. For example, gerrymandering. Present it publicly. It not only affects your representative because they'll hear what town you're from and say, oh, I represent them. I better make a note of this. It will give other people a chance to realize they care about the same thing. Somebody that hasn't even heard the word gerrymandering before might hear you speaking, and that might get the ball rolling. There's a thing to be said for accuracy, for volume over accuracy. This would be a case where that will be effective. If progressives all around the country normalize attending these events, speak in our minds, I assure you the progressive movement in general will grow simply because it's more visible. Well, I'll tell you, I do indeed love doing the show, and I love having an audience here. Oh, man. Having an audience here, even when it's a Monday night crowd. 7 likes and 4 watching. Epic. Hey, it's growth, baby. I'll take it. That's going to do it for the show today. I hope to see you tomorrow. If you enjoyed the show, consider being the 8th like. And of course, I hope you'll consider subscribing as well. This has been WYCD Wicked. I've been your old pal Jake. I'll see you next time.
Yeah, do you even love me anymore? Are you in or are you out? What are you here for? They ask me if I'm finished, but I'll tell you one more. Baby, this is all I got. accept. I blame pride. No, this ain't the type of tape you eject. It's straight fire. No, this ain't to say I'm facing regret. At the same time, it's like think back to the day that we met. I mean, I hate to admit crime, hate to admit lying, hate to admit buying the fact that the flames dying. Made up my damn mind to fix it, I've been trying. 1 minute we're all fine until we go offline. Yeah, fuck it up, baby, like it was the first time. Yeah, pucker up, girl, we made it through the worst times. Yeah, suck it up, girl, we made it through the hard days.